RV spot.
Especially Carlsbad with all the welders and stuff that work in the oil field. I mean, John Henry, it was insane what they paid.
Oh, yeah.
It's nuts. So, yeah.
And Rachel said she was gonna be here tonight.
That ought to be interesting.
6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh dear, okay. All right, everyone, I'd like to welcome you to this special meeting of the Otero County Commission on Thursday, February 15th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Marquardt,
Here.
Commissioner Barella,
Here?
Commissioner Matherly,
Here.
All right.
Caught me off guard. I ordered.
I know. It did me too. I was like, what? Okay, I make a motion to approve the agenda. Do I get a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so our new business is discuss and hear public comment on whether Otero County should implement a county lodger's tax. You want to start us off? All your information?
Well, yeah, I sent a lot of information to you last night. I think it was 11 counties that currently have it implemented, and some of them bring in a little, and some of them bring in a lot. The thing that stood out to me most was Lincoln County bringing in $450,000 last year, and that started in 2021. Their amount of lodgers nearly doubled. And I think that's probably because they started accounting for short-term rentals or Airbnbs. And I sent you that site, I think Ruba.com. It has the Airbnb data, and you can kind of look on the map, and there's 251 properties in Otero County that are listed on Airbnb with an average annual income of $27,500. If we could collect from all of those, then that would be about $400,000 a year. But as we look closer, Sylvia counted the ones that were in the unincorporated areas, and we could have missed some or added some, but there were 81 properties that we counted, and that would be 1.4 million, which would be $72,000 a year at 5%, if we did the full 5%. And of course, that's not accounting for RV parks, which could add a little. If a property is on vacation rental by owner or some of the other sites and not Airbnb, then they could potentially add to that. But with that comes tracking them down and accounting for them. So even if it was $100,000 a year, it would likely take a new county employee to be able to administer it and manage it, to do it right, because it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And once we factor in benefits, we can assume that's $75,000. So possibly we would be pulling in $30,000 maybe in addition to that. But it could be less. It might not be. It could be a neutral thing. Like every bit of money we take in ends up just paying for the employee to manage it. If we did have extra beyond that, the uses could go towards advertising for the area. We could contract with the Center of Commerce to promote the area and promote tourism type things. But as it stands right now and looking at it, it might not be enough money to make it worth it. But these are all estimates. I don't know for sure. We did talk to Lincoln County about the resources that it took to currently manage it, and they said it was a lot, and that they're looking at hiring someone to be the lodger's tax manager. If we could bring in $450,000, I think it'd be great. I just don't know that we could do that.
Did you find out about the inn?
Yeah, not like for sure. It's not addressed anywhere in statute that I can see, but there's some case law that deals with tribal issues and essentially says if the statute doesn't address it, then it doesn't apply. So for it to apply, it would have to specifically be addressed. And I did talk to Santa Fe to see if they were getting it from Buffalo Thunder, and they said they were not. So based on that, I'm assuming we can't.
Probably not.
Because that would have been awesome. That would have been a lot of money.
That would have been legit.
So I'm thinking, for one, especially in the beginning, and it's not a full-time employed position for them to do. I mean, getting it established. I did talk to Rachel. Laura wasn't there, and Rachel said she was going to be here tonight to kind of help us. And I told her how Lincoln County had it set up as far as their reporting and all that. Did you look at that, how they go online and pay for it? It looks pretty easy, easier than the website for sure.
That thing
And-
is awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Freaking
Yeah.
hate the TAP website.
Yeah. And so, you know, the way that I suggested, if we could get this through the treasurer's office, then dedicate 25% of the income towards their administration costs. I think as this accumulates and gets bigger, then maybe we will have to consider hiring somebody in the future. I think the most difficult part is going to be the establishment, notifying everybody, and the initial collections. After that, hypothetically, we had a list. Hey, you didn't pay your taxes. Here's your letter, late fee, whatever we're going to do. I don't think it's a full-time job. So I wouldn't say $75,000, no way, Jose. But I think that this is important to have for economic development. And as we advertise Alamogordo and help, it's going to help our B&Bs. And then it in turn helps us back. So I want to try it. I'm excited about where the money can go. I know it's not going to be much, but if we can get 3 signs on the interstate for an entire year for $30,000, then we're advertising Alamogordo, White Sands, whatever it is, come and stay here. So I want to try it. Do you want to call Jan up here yet or not yet? Just for discussion?
Sure. Jan, do you want to come up and tell us what you know since you managed it for the city? Yes, ma'am. Help us see the light.
Okay. Is this on? Yes.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Okay. What I did for the city was I
Hey, Jan,
managed the tourism.
Real quick, state your name.
Oh,
for the
okay,
record.
sorry. Jan Waffle, I'm the Otero County Film Liaison. My office is over at the Chamber of Commerce, or the Center of Commerce now. When I worked for municipal, between 2005 and 2000 and late 16, early 17, I took care of the lodger's tax tourism end and the Alamogordo Promotion Board, which was the lodger's tax committee for the city. Adjudicated by state law, there is a 60-40 split on how the money can be spent. 40 is dedicated totally to tourism. And I watched that budget grow from the time that I went to work with them from $105,000 a year to $269,000 a year. And that's just the 40%. The other 60% provided almost the entire budget for the Civic Center, the city's special events, the infrastructure cost, and manpower for security and people to help with events. So it was a win-win for the city to have that free money to spend that came in off the top of the lodger's tax. So we were able to start a television advertising campaign that amounted at first to about $40,000 and then built up to $65,000. And I think that was really responsible for a lot of the increase. We amateurized it over the 12 years that I was there with the program advertising, and it was a solid increase with the cost of living increase taken off of a solid 25% increase in that length of time to bring it up to that 269,000. So I really think that it's an opportunity for advertising funds to bring more people to our visitation sites and our area attractions. Most of them are in the county. There are some that are within the city limits, but most are within the county. And I think it would be a great benefit to the local community to have those dollars coming through here.
Do you happen to know why the city abandoned theirs?
No, sir. I had retired from the city before that happened, so I was not privy to any information. I went through the agenda and the minutes online to see if I could see why they discontinued it, because we have people that worked for tourism that dedicated their whole lives to tourism for Alamogordo that spoke in favor of keeping it. And Lance Adams from the tourism department, and I believe one of our senators were there asking them to keep it as well. But it still was rescinded.
I attended that meeting. I didn't speak at it, but I think it had to do with Otero County Economic Development closing up. for
That's what I
one.
heard. Yeah.
And then two, they said they were going to do their own in-house economic development and tourism department. I don't know how that's going, but that, when the presenter was talking about what they could do with the funds, that's what they were talking about, is keeping everything in-house.
Well, and the agenda minutes reflected that it had something to do with, they thought it would help the local hotel industry after COVID. And there was some reference to that in the minutes. But I believe that this is something that would really help the county and the city both if they had continued to bring that in, because we were advertising all the area attractions within the whole county, not just what was within the city or the city golf course and the zoo and all of the things that the city owned. So I really didn't understand why they repealed it.
And this is a fair tax because we're going to be using the tourist funds to get more tourists. We're not taking it off of our backs, our citizens' backs, to pay for the advertising. And that's why I feel that this is more fair than having something in-house and we have to advertise from our budget.
It might start out small or smaller than you anticipate to begin with, but I do agree that having a part-time devotion to that would be something that would totally be cost-effective for you to do. And I really support doing something with a county lodger's tax. I've seen it work, and I've seen how much progress in the tourism industry that we made at the city just by garnering continuously more heads and beds from the funds that were spent.
How much time do you think you spent working on it? Was it full-time when you were doing it?
Oh, no, ma'am. I took care of 6 boards when I was with the city, and that was just one of them. But I executed all of the advertising plans, did all of the television commercials and the negotiations for them. But I would bring the plans and my recommendations. They had all kinds of different options about advertising, and whatever they chose was what I placed.
Okay.
So I was reading in the practices handbook where we form a committee, and that committee kind of decides the allocations of how the funding is going to be done. And it's my assumption that with that committee, that they would also be in part handling some of the job duties that you just discussed.
Yes.
The advertising and all of that. And I would think somebody from the B&B industry needs to be on that committee tourism department, the chamber, whoever we decide, that committee comes together, and then as we put this plan together and the ordinance together, because we can even use 5% of it, put it away for, this is in there, a laundromat for like a temporary housing, and which, they're gonna say tent cities is what they're wanting to do, but I mean, if that is the future, then not something I want, but we'd have a little bit of money to put there.
When the city set up the ordinances to collect the lodger's tax and create the promotion board, it was very specific about who the members of the board could be. You had to have at least 2 members that were hoteliers.
I think it's still that way.
You had to have someone who was involved in the tourism industry that lived within the city limits. You also had to have someone from the media there. So if you know the people that were on the board for a long time, there were hoteliers, there was radio personality, there was all kinds of tourism people who knew the industry and who dealt with advertising all the time. So you might look at their ordinance, because that's still available online, and create something similar where you have people from the different segments of the tourism industry that know what the benefits are for that segment to help you.
It's a good idea.
It's per statute that you have to do that.
Yep.
In the
Sorry.
rough draft ordinance that I have just to start looking at and working on, I changed it from, Lincoln County has 5 members on their committee, and I put 7 on here, just so that we could try and reach all of the aspects. And I didn't even think about the media. That, I think, once you explained it, that's a great idea.
Well, advertising is so important, and knowing someone that knows what contracts should cost and what airtime should cost for radio and for television advertisement was a huge help. And I think that that would be something that you would want to do. You would take them from the different sectors, people that were knowledgeable, people that would apply for the job because they wanted to be a part of helping with the distribution. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deanne.
The board has to be 5 members, and it's 2 members who are owners or operators of lodging operation, and then 2 members who are owners or operators of industries located in the unincorporated part of the county that provide services or products to tourists, and then 1 member who is a resident of the unincorporated area of the county who would represent the general public.
I thought that was a minimum of 5.
It doesn't say it can be more, and it says shall appoint a 5-member advisory board.
Okay.
Anyone else want to talk? Main Street, what you got?
Come on, no one.
I fear you guys
You know you
want
want
some
to say
money.
something. Yeah.
Nolan Ojeda, Alamogordo Main Street. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Okay, so from our, I'll say our, but it's probably more of my perspective. We attend conferences twice a year, where all the main streets, there's 36 of us, 36 communities. We all come together and we talk about the different projects that we've been able to accomplish, and then kind of give each other a breakdown of the skeletal way you got it done, right? In partnership with your government partner, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things I hear at those conferences a lot is the way that lodger's tax has been used in creative, still legal, but creative ways to increase quality of life for areas. Anything from, one of them I heard they had used, a portion of it was used for creating a permanent farmer's market structure, right? So instead of people coming and popping up tents, they kind of had pre-built little table shaded areas out of concrete with a shade over it and a beautiful walking path and green space and stuff. And the entire project wasn't funded only with lodger's tax, but a portion of it was. So one of the things when it was first brought up with the city, to remove the lodger's tax, I went through line by line that statute and looked at the different ways you can use it. Even the way it's written right now, and I know Senator Griggs is currently working he's trying to push through a bill to expand the use of lodger's tax for quality of life projects, but even the way it's written now, there are, and correct me if I'm wrong, RB, but what I read in there was uses for things that were like day trips, because the way tourism is going, the way we're seeing it at a national level, is that day trips are becoming more and more of an industry within of themselves. And there was also pieces in there where it said, there were certain allowances for culturally significant buildings too. So if you could prove that a building you have that maybe is falling apart, or a park or something that's falling apart, but is culturally significant enough that it draws tourism, if you can prove it, then you could justify using lodger's tax on projects like that. So really, the amount of creativity you can use, even the way it's written, it's broader than people, I think, realize. And there are examples all across the state of ways that people are using it that are still within the limitations of the statute, but they're taking the time to figure out how to get there within the law, right? So for me, I think it was a huge blow when we lost the lodger's tax at the municipal level. It kind of broke our hearts a little bit as Main Street, because there are so many ways. In our opinion, it's money that's coming from outside of our community into our community, and we should take advantage of that. That's economic development 101. You don't want to be harvesting your money only out of your own ecosystem. You need to be harvesting money from outside your ecosystem. And so I think it was a huge mistake to remove the lodger's tax, and I can say that on record because I've said it to everybody that's going to be mad at me for saying it on record to their face. So, but I think that it was a lesson, and I'm hoping it will be reversed someday at the city level, but I think this is a step in the right direction since we don't have it right now and we're missing out. We're missing out on free money. So that's kind of how me and my board members felt about it when we lost it at the city level. So, and I know that with the county and Main Street, we have a partnership, but there are contracted partners, but even so, there's projects we do that we understand we're the biggest city in the county for most of the residents. I mean, we have people from Ruidoso, Tularosa, Cloudcroft. We support a lot of the surrounding structures. So increasing the quality of life as Main Street, even though it's within just the city limits, it really is increasing opportunities for people for the whole county. So I think that this could open some doors that are otherwise shut to us right now. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, guys.
Hey, Nolan, what's a day trip?
A day trip. So a day trip is where you don't actually stay overnight in a place. So you leave early in the morning, spend all day in a spot or putzing around, and then go back home. So like an El Paso citizen driving over here to spend all day at White Sands, get something to eat in Alamogordo, turning around and going home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you're saying we could pay for that? Or
So there are some stuff in the statute, and this was like a year ago, so don't quote me. But I remember reading that there were, like, if you had events that maybe they weren't 2-day events, they could be 1-day events, but you could prove that they were driving tourism to your area, you could still access the lodger's tax as a promotional, like part of the
Gotcha.
promotional
Yes.
40%.
okay, to help advertise it or
Correct.
fund the event.
Even if it wasn't a multi-day event, but you have to be able to prove, you have to be able to back up that it is a tourism driver. It's not
Like when
just,
they do the balloon glow.
Right.
That's what I was thinking, if they
Right.
just drove from El Paso for just a day.
correct. But I think, but like a fireworks show, you're probably not going to be able to justify that, right? Something
They
like
said there's a lot of leeway. I got a document here that the Gallup city attorney put out, and he was poo-pooing everything. And so he said you couldn't do tents or other physical structures, so the farmer's market would be out. But he just doesn't have a can-do attitude. So.
Yeah, and if you guys want to go look that up, oh gosh, it's in one of the corridors in Albuquerque. Claudia, do you remember which one? Which one is she? Albuquerque, of course, has like 5 main streets, so it's kind of hard to keep them all straight. But I'll look that up and I'll email it to you guys,
Thank you.
that farmer's market project. Like I said, it wasn't fully funded by lodger's tax, but they did give her a portion of it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything?
Thank you for coming.
Yes, absolutely. Madam Chair, Commissioners, thanks again for giving me the opportunity, Administration. My name is Jarrett Perry. I'm the Executive Director for the Alamogordo Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here to advocate for the lobby, for this tax, for the lodger's tax. First of all, I think it's a necessary tax that we need to impose. It's absolutely beneficial for Otero County, for Alamogordo, Otero County as a whole. The Alamogordo Chamber of Commerce plays a vital role. Our mission is to support small businesses, not just in Alamogordo, but in Otero County. The Alamogordo Chamber of Commerce is primed and poised to make sure that we achieve that mission. And working hand in hand with the city, Alamogordo Main Street, and of course the county, it's very important that we collaborate together. The Alamogordo Chamber of Commerce, we actually own the www.alamogordo.com domain, and there's an immense amount of traffic that comes through there, and it would absolutely benefit the Chamber of Commerce and our mission to support you with this endeavor. Again, it's a tax that could be imposed not on our citizens, but for people that visit us. And so it's a logical thing to happen, and we do have the capacity and the ability to market exponentially. The amount of traffic that actually comes through that domain is really unbelievable, and we can certainly utilize that. So however you can use, if you decide to do this, you can certainly use the entity of the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that we market effectively throughout Otero County. Like I said, we do have the capacity. Now at the Alamogordo Chamber of Commerce, I'm surrounded myself with digital natives, and so we're able to build websites. We're developing a citywide tour with Skyview 2U.
That is so cool.
We've actually
Man,
partnered with
really
them,
awesome.
so we've strategically been able to capture Alamogordo as a whole, and we're ready to do that for Otero County as well. When you put the digital piece to that and you tie it into the actual domain of alamogordo.com, you can imagine the audience that you could apply that to. So I'm here again to advocate for the lodger's tax. I think it's a feasible, rational thing to do, and I think it'll benefit the entire community as a whole, especially our small businesses. So thank you.
Yep, yep.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So initially, my idea was, we would have this through the treasurer's office, or if they said no, then it'd have to be on our finance office or whatever. But if we partnered with an entity that was interested, and I'm going to use the example of the chamber, are we allowed to allow them to collect and handle and distribute as we decide the apportionment? Or does the money have to go straight from the county and then to the entity?
I think we would most likely have to manage that, and
If we just share.
after it's assessed with the different percentages that can go here and there for that use, then it does authorize the contracting of entity like the Center of Commerce to accomplish some of the authorized uses of it, such as like advertising and promoting. So we could use them in that way. But I think the management of the tax would have to be retained within the county government.
I called B&B owners, and I didn't have one B&B owner that was opposed to this. I drove around to the RV parks today. So a question that came up when I did that was, what about their permanent housing that they have that are RVers? Copper Penny was one. All of their RVs are permanent. And so we would need to define.
It can't apply to anyone that stays more than 30 days. So.
So I was reading in the Albuquerque ordinance, I think it was, that it said that it's not a permanent housing, so that it does apply. But I think that if we could write an exemption to make sure that if they stay there more than 30 days, then they're exempt from that. I do feel that that's fair. But the other RV park up at Mountain Meadows I went, she was afraid of the cost. She said she didn't want the cost to go higher. So we sat and we discussed if they charge $35 a night for their temporary housing, that's $1.75 lodger's tax at 5%. I mean, so it's not that much of an increase. It's definitely not on the RV park's back to pay it either. It's on the resident. So I think this is doable, and I want to figure out how to make it happen. I wish the treasurer's office was here so that we could see how they're willing there to help us do this.
Do you have Rachel's number? And she said she was coming?
She said she was coming.
One thing I'd like to see, RB, if we could, even we had to give it a trial, even if it cost the county a little bit of money, I think we should budget it, figure it out. What we're doing is supporting the county, advertising the county, and trying to bring economy to the county. We do a lot of things that cost us money, that even if some of this does, I think it would be beneficial to the residents and the people of the county, is the way I'm looking at it. We're trying to put back in and support our county, advertise it and get people to come. So I would hope that the treasurer's office could figure out how to do it with what we have, or whatever office would have to do it. That's just a suggestion, but I still can't believe Alamogordo quit or abandoned it. Has anybody heard, Perry, have you heard anything if they're even thinking about bringing it back, or it's gone, it's
It has to go to public.
water
vote.
under the bridge and
It has to go to public vote at this point to get it to reinstated.
would they?
Yeah.
I have heard, and this is just heard, that if Senator Griggs is able to get his bill passed, that there is going to be a push to put it back to the public.
The destruction of the state ended at noon today. So that's, we're good.
It's a good way to put it.
And I don't know that it would have to go through the treasurer's office. At the city, it went directly through the finance department because it's something that the state mails back to you each month from the previous month. The 5% comes back from the 17% that's collected.
And see, and I was looking at their Lincoln County, the way that they did their collections, and they have it set up on their treasurer's page. And it's really,
Right, if I may,
It's
at the
a one-
city, the utility billing department is also the department that collects all fees and cash for the city. And that is that's part of the finance department. So that's why it went through the finance department. But here, all of the revenue is collected by the treasurer. So it would have to go through the treasurer's office. And then finance would be responsible for budgeting it properly and making sure that, the 40% goes into this line item and the 60% goes into this line item, and that they're used for appropriate purposes. And then we would do the disbursements. Definitely, we work with the treasurer's office, but they would have to actually take the money in and receipt it.
And then it would be up to you to handle the rest of it.
Yeah.
I know you look so excited.
No, I'm familiar with it from having been at the city, so, it's just, with the board, and then there's quarterly reporting. There is a little bit to it, so we would need some additional help. Maybe a part-time employee to start with. I don't know if we could find someone part-time to do that, possibly. It's difficult to find part-time positions. The part-time position that you authorized me for this year, I received 3 applicants that were not qualified, and that was it. So that's why I'm going to be asking for a full-time position during budget. But, I think we would need someone to assist with it. Maybe
got a
not
full-time
initially
with
right
that-
away, but I think it would be something that would be very helpful to have an additional person who could really monitor that, manage it, make sure they go to the committee meetings so that they're aware of what's going on and how the money's going to be used, making sure that everything's budgeted appropriately.
If we got you a good full-time, would they have time to help with this and help you still?
Possibly. That person, I foresee them helping a lot with some of the general ledger items and being the accounts payable backup person. The volume of invoices and billings that's coming through accounts payable it's increased, I can't tell you how many times, from what it was even a couple years ago. It's a lot. It's constant. It's a constant influx. And it's getting difficult to manage for just one person. So I need someone to assist.
And I think the treasurer's position, based on the conversations I had with them, is that they would need an additional employee to manage if we took this on, based on their current work demands, that they wouldn't be able to commit the resources to this without a new person. That's their position. I don't know what all this will entail, so.
But if they were just collecting the money, that's not gonna be huge. I would think that would be the huge end of it, I don't think. What do you think, Julianne?
I would imagine they would have to manage like the website portion of it that would be on their webpage to pay it. And then, receipting the funds. I know that they're very busy over there. In the past, they used to have a part-time position. And then that person left and they ended up not refilling that part-time position. So maybe a part-time position would be helpful for them to help with that and maybe even help with some other duties. Like during tax season, it's very, very busy over there when they're collecting all the property taxes. They don't have a spare moment, so it's pretty crazy.
I just see the most difficult part of it is past dues. Who's going to make sure?
That's true,
Yes.
yeah, and that, I'm not sure how that would be handled. I know at the city, we would send out letters, but we really didn't have, a collection, well, I guess they did have a collection agency at the city. Yeah.
The enforcement mechanism, I'm fairly certain you have to take them to court, and so.
Well, I was
not
reading
fast.
here where the treasurer's office actually goes through and puts liens on properties for defaults. Yeah,
Liens can be added, yeah.
yeah,
Like they do for the property tax?
right.
So
It's just,
how do they regulate, how do they turn in, say, Boot Hill, I'm just saying. Tonight they have, you happen to have that, huh? So it's up to them to turn in how many one-nighters they had, how many 31-nighters they had?
Yep.
That's a monthly deal they have to turn in every month?
right, and it's set up just like TAP website is, just a little bit simpler. So it says your gross income and then your exempt income that you remove off of it, and this is the income you pay your taxes on.
Okay, let's get pretty much everything on there. So that kind of goes off the honesty policy?
Same with paying your taxes.
It's the same, yeah. Just tell everybody you can't stay more than 30 days, get out.
Yeah.
Or stay
Different lots.
31 is what you need to do, yeah. Now that says they'll be issued a civil penalty if they don't pay.
One thing we probably need to decide on here pretty quick, because we're starting our budget period, if we're gonna have to try to budget a person in for that. So, I don't think we can drag our feet too long on this. If we're gonna do it, we need to do it. If we're not, then, because that'll change either your budget request or their budget request one.
And I also think that we have to hit a March deadline if we want to start collecting by July 1st to be able to do this. That's not correct?
I don't, that applies to the like
gross-
GRT
Yeah, grocery receipts
taxes.
is
This one,
July and January.
I know it doesn't have that, because that is because the state sets that because it's through taxation and revenue. And they have nothing to do with this. This is all at the county or municipal level, so it would go into effect when we say it goes into effect. The next steps would be to, it'd be to
Request-
approve a public hearing.
request to
at the
advertise a
March
hearing.
meeting, and then the
Schedule.
ordinance could be discussed and approved at the April meeting.
Do I have to be on the board?
No, it's appointed by.
Oh, okay.
I already read that.
So I just stole Lincoln County's ordinance and I took out stuff that doesn't pertain to us, some departments that they have that we don't have, and changed some wording on some stuff. I did change that to a 7-person committee from a 5, so we'd need to change that back. But this, I think, is a start of an ordinance so that we can present this.
Yeah, the ordinance is pretty straightforward, so.
I highlighted like the statute numbers, just so we could verify they're still correct and not.
There's a few areas in the statute where it gives a county or a city the opportunity to, I think one of those is, it specifies all these things the tax can and cannot be used for once you hit this percentage and that percentage, and then after all of that, it says that the excess amount can be used for any purpose the county specifies in the ordinance. So if we wanted to be able to use it for, we could put in it that it would go to the general fund, as long as we put that that's what it'll do, then that's where it could go.
Or maybe that's where the farmer's market money came from.
Yeah. Yeah, but there is a 2-year limit, or 2-year, you can't let it roll over for more than 2 years. It has to be spent within 2 years, so I don't, the number of folks will track that.
It's the year it's collected and 2 years after that. And I strongly advocate if you do decide to do this, that you go for the full 5%, because that's where the impact will be the greatest, and you wouldn't ever have to think about redoing it.
Lincoln County allocates the first 3% of the tax and not less than 1/4 of the proceeds from the tax in excess of 3% shall be used for the advertising, publicizing, and promoting tourist-related attractions, facilities, and events set forth. If we did 5%, we could allocate 3% towards advertisement and events, and 2% to administrative.
Yeah, that, part of that language is directly from the statute, and so several pieces of that would be directly from the statute, and then kind of the last piece is just anything that isn't directed in those various percentages, that's where we could add additional things.
So if we could use it for promotions and then to help offset the cost of that, I mean, that would be a win-win.
So our next step would be, this is our March meeting to what? Form a committee?
No, you'd have to request to advertise and schedule a public hearing to pass the ordinance. We couldn't, I don't think we can do the committee till the ordinance is approved, correct?
Not the committee that
Right.
is called for in
Right.
the
Okay.
statute. And I don't think, I think it sounds like there's at least a desire to schedule the public hearing and consider the ordinance now. So you do that in March, and then April, or if you wanted it sooner, it could be a special meeting 2 weeks earlier, or 2 weeks from the March meeting. There's a public hearing on the ordinance, and hopefully, thanks to everyone that came tonight. It's good to be able to hear from members of the community, but it'd be way better if we had the room packed and we had the businesses here to put on record and put their 2 cents in, because what is not fun is we pass it and then everyone's like, well, I can't believe you did that. And why didn't I know about it? And
Yep.
like, well, there was a meeting and you could have came, but
Yep.
so.
And that's why I reached out to as many as I could to ask, to make sure that this is the right direction for them.
Yeah, and so they'll be able to come to that public hearing, and everyone can comment that wants to comment, and then the commission will vote to either implement it or not implement it. And then we go from there, and budget meetings will be occurring at the same time, and I'm sure everyone's gonna ask for an additional employee and a raise, so.
Julianne was going to anyway, and I hadn't even seen it.
Well, I would like to make a motion. Are we allowed to vote today?
No, there's nothing
Okay.
to vote on.
Okay, so I would like to just get this set up for our next commission meeting.
Sure.
To move forward.
You got it?
Well, can we have the public hearing before the commission meeting, or we have to
No.
approve it through the commission
Well, and
meeting?
we have to have
that?
at least 14 days to schedule and advertise. We have to advertise at least 14 days for a public hearing. That's law. So, and we need you to select the date of the meeting. We need to have that vote to schedule that hearing. So no, you can't schedule a hearing today.
Oh,
So the next commission meeting,
We will
we can
schedule a
schedule a
hearing.
meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll get it on there.
And that meeting, that gives us 2 weeks from the commission meeting to present this ordinance?
Not exactly 14 days. We have to give the newspaper several days to get the first advertisement in, get the ad approved. But Sylvia will calculate those days and tell you the earliest we can have the hearing at the meeting.
And that's the hearing that we need to have the ordinance ready
Yes.
for presentation?
The ordinance has to be ready at time of publication of the meeting because it has to be available for the public to review in time. The minute we advertise the public hearing, the ordinance has to be ready.
Do we need to form a little group to look at this ordinance and write it, or we're just
It's
gonna
gonna
handle
slow you
that?
down, I think.
We'll get some go-getters.
I'll get it written and I can send it to all of you for input.
Okay,
And if you want to get input from anyone else, you can share it.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, all right. Anybody else have anything? Okay, let's go eat supper. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your
Thank
input.
you all for coming.
One thing we,
Might as well do it on the 11th.
when we do have this public hearing, if you can get the word out, get the people the word, we can advertise all you want.